So, sherry. First of all, before we get into anything complicated or nerdy, sherry and ham. It's just one of the finest flavour combinations in the world. It's so simple, it's so pure, it's so clean, it's so rich and yet light at the same time. Great Serrano ham, great ham iberico in Spain with the various different styles of sherry is, I think, just one of the most perfect flavours you could ever put in your mouth. Now, it's really great here to be showing a selection of wines from one of my favourite bodegas. This is a bodega called Valdespino, and they're a very important sherry bodega in the Sherry Triangle. Let me just give you a very brief introduction to sherry for those that don't understand it or haven't drunk much of it before. I'm not going to go into loads of detail because we could talk all day. However, there's a few things that if you could just get your head around, you'll really appreciate the sherry's more for. First of all, it's a wine. Now, we have this weird problem in this country where we've forgotten what it is, and we treat it almost like it's a liqueur. You'll go into every pub or bar in Manchester tonight and you'll see a bottle of Tio Pepe on the back bar, half open, it's been there for 18 months. The only thing that ever gets used for is splashed on the top of Bloody Mary. It's gone, oxidised, destroyed, and weirdly served in a tiny little measure, like you're buying a Drambuie or something like that. We don't understand what this stuff is. It's a wine. That's it. It's a very unusual, unique, and special wine with a few kind of quite unique characteristics that we'll talk a little bit about. But first of all, get that in your head. You treat it as a wine, think of it as a wine, and enjoy it as a wine. It's a food-friendly, light, dry, delicate, exciting, unique style of wine. It is a fortified wine. And what people normally associate that term with is sweeter styles of wine, like port, where you would fortify the wine early in the fermentation in order to keep hold of all that residual sugar that would be used up in the normal fermentation. Now, this is not the case. We're dealing with a normal vinified wine. You pick the grapes, which are Palomino Fino, very sort of basic, simple, sort of humble grape variety that doesn't really produce anything exciting in terms of conventional table wine, but is the perfect blank canvas for sherry production. All you need is a clean, fresh, healthy, fresh wine ready to go. Now, you ferment that to full dryness, normally about 11, 12, 13 degrees of alcohol. At that point, the winemaker will then fortify the wine just about a couple of degrees higher, in the case of a Manzanillo and a Fino. Now, there's two key reasons for doing that. There's lots of little reasons, but the two key reasons are sherry is a blended wine. It's an aged blended wine, and you want to stabilise that wine to prevent it from being prone to any kind of biological issues, any kind of microbial attack. You want to stabilise it so that it can develop and change and evolve in cask over the period of its evolution. So you need a little bit of extra alcohol in order to prevent any spoilage to the wine. You also do it for one fundamental thing, which typifies and really kind of is the key thing about sherry, is you create an environment in the barrels where something called flor can develop. Now, flor is 4 unique types of Saccharomyces yeast, unique to the area, living in the bodegas, in the casks themselves, just within the environment. They come together and form this veil of flor on top of the wine in barrel. Now, this can be quite thick, a couple of inches in places, and it is a solid layer of yeast. Now, the barrels are only ever about 3/4 full, and with that layer of yeast on the top, it's prevented from excessive oxidation. It acts as almost like not a hermetic seal, but it prevents too much oxygen damaging the wine. It also does all sorts of interesting things to the liquid while it's maturing in cask. It starts doing things like feeding off the wine. It starts feeding off any residual sugars, feeding off any residual glycerin, which is a colourless textural compound that gives wine viscosity and body and richness. One of the reasons why sherry is just so incredibly delicate and light. Now, the key thing that you need to understand about sherry is something called the Solaris system. Now, the Solaris system is a technique, a system of fractional blending across a network of barrels. Picture, I'm sure some of you have seen pictures of sherry bodegas, big lines of barrels piled up on top of each other, hundreds of them side by side. Now, that's a network, that's a system. You're going to make the fresh wine of that harvest, and as I said, it's just a conventional wine, normal grapes, normal wine, vinified conventionally, fortified just a couple of degrees higher. That's the Sobretape, that's the fresh wine of that season's harvest. That's going to go in this end of the system. Now, the finished wine that you're enjoying in the glass is coming from this end of the system. Now, you very simply tap off the wine from that barrel, run it through a small filter, and then bottle it. Fresh, good to go. You only ever remove about a third of the volume of that final barrel. And the volume that you remove gets filled up from the second, and the second from the third, and the third from the fourth, and the fourth from the fifth, and carry on. So you're putting the fresh wine of the harvest in that year, and you're taking the finished wine to bottle and drink from the other end of the system, and you're gradually moving the wine in between. So you're fractionally blending. All wine, there's a few very small exceptions, but all sherry wine tends to be blended using this system.
Can I just ask, is that something that's done once a year?
No, it's done constantly. It's done fairly constantly when they bottle the wine, which is normally twice. Some of the bigger companies will bottle slightly more, but normally 2, 3, at the most probably 4 times a year. And when they bottle out of that final part of the system, they top up, top up, top up, top up, top up, top up. So the wine's getting blended over the course of the time. Final thing is geography. Sherry is a very, very unique product from a very, very unique place. It's only from one little place called the Sherry Triangle in the south of Andalusia. So if you get on the train in Seville, head due south. In about an hour, you hit a beautiful town called Jerez de la Frontera. It's an amazing place. It's a fantastic town. Now that is the capital of sherry production. In fact, the name sherry itself is an anglicisation from the Old Moorish word for that part of the world. Xerez, Jerez, Jerez. Jerez becomes sherry over the course of 300 or 400 years. So, Jerez de la Frontera is the capital of production. Then you've got a couple of little satellite towns on the coast near it, and we're talking 15 to 20 kilometres, no more away. You've got El Puerto de Santa Maria, and you've got San Luca de Barrameda. And that little triangle formed is sherry. It doesn't come from anywhere else in the world, anywhere else in Spain, just this tiny little corner of space and time in the south of Andalusia. The towns are the centre of production, that's where the wines are made and matured, and then the vineyards run between and around the towns, and that's it. It's a really unique, very special, very local, and very historically important product. Onto the taste of the wine. Manzanilla. Manzanilla is a type of sherry. It's a type of Fino sherry. Now, Fino is the dry, light, elegant, delicate style. It's the introduction to sherry. It's the easiest, softest, lightest, probably the most food friendly in terms of versatility. Now, Manzanilla is a type of Fino that takes a different name purely because it comes from the town of San Luca de Barrameda. Now, San Luca de Barrameda is not inland like Jerez, it's right on the coast. Right on the coast, facing kind of due west, and it's very, very, very influenced by a cold, humid, quite blustery climate, sweeping in off the Atlantic, hitting the coast and getting channeled through the town. And all the bodegas in the town are built to actually face that breeze and allow it to flood into the bodega